So what is BWRT? Brain Working Recursive Therapy, or BWRT for short, is a wonderful neuroscience technique that works directly on your brain to alter unhelpful brain patterns. It literally alters the pathways in your brain that cause you to feel panic, fear, anxiety, and other unhelpful responses. Instead of spiders triggering panic, you can react to them like ants. Instead of road raging when you're driving your kids to school, you can become a calm and controlled driver. A speech in public? Easy. Living with flashbacks to a horrific trauma, something awful that happened to you? BWRT will help you to make it small and like watching a movie that happened to someone else rather than happening to you in the here and now when you're having a flashback. If you can't stop shouting at your kids, BWRT can alter your responses so that you become that calm and loving parent that you've always wanted to be. My name is Karen. I'm a clinical psychologist and I use BWRT every single day in my practice. In this video, I'm going to explain how BWRT works. BWRT is a neuroscience technique that was originally developed by Terence Watts in about 2011. It's a client-centered method that uses your imagination to directly alter unhelpful patterns and responses in your brain. Because it's so powerful, BWRT can't be used by just anyone. It can only be used by licensed, certified mental health counselors, psychologists, and other professionals. Did you know that your brain functions without you? It does a whole lot of things without involving your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that you think of as me. Everybody knows that your brain takes care of all kinds of things without involving the part of you that you think of as me. It, for example, controls your breathing and your heartbeats and all the physical processes and responses of your body. It also controls your reflexes. So for example, when you're driving and the brake lights of the car in front of you come on, your foot is on your brake before you are even aware. If somebody throws a ball at your head, depending on what kind of person you are, you might duck or you might freeze and get hit in the head. But either way, the response happens before your conscious awareness. If you're really scared of spiders, I mean really scared, and I show you a photo of a spider on my phone, you'll freak out, even though you know that that's a photo, it's not real, but your brain responds as if it were real before your conscious mind kicks in. A good typist or a pianist, their fingers just move and the words appear on the keyboard or the music emanates from the piano without their conscious thought. The person typing or the person playing just thinks of the words they want to see or the sound they want to hear, and their fingers just automatically do the work because your brain is taking care of those kinds of functions. It's on autopilot. Your brain does a whole lot of stuff on excellent autopilot, actually. If you're finding this video interesting or helpful so far, then please hit that like and subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Vast quantities of information come into your five senses all the time, and your brain categorizes and makes sense of these huge quantities of data without involving you. Because if you think about it, it would be completely overwhelming if you were consciously aware of every single sound, sensation, sight, and smell that comes in through your five senses. What happens is that your brain categorizes the data and creates an automated response that your brain stores. It's like a massive database of patterns. And the very next time that event or that trigger is experienced by your brain plays the auto response almost like a software program. Interestingly, your brain does not assign value to these patterns. Your brain doesn't decide whether something is good or bad or helpful or unhelpful. It just runs the automatic response. If your brain encounters something completely new, then it creates a new pattern. And the next time that event is encountered, your brain then runs the pattern that it has established from the first interaction with that stimuli. The thing is that most of the time, your beautiful and amazing brain works incredibly hard and incredibly well for you. But BWRT comes in when your brain makes a mistake. So when an unhelpful response occurs, what happens is that your brain receives the trigger, the information, and it sends the automated response directly. But the response is something that you don't want, that is not helpful to you, and maybe that makes you feel really bad. Your response is already running by the time your conscious brain knows what is going on. For example, your brain might have you running and screaming loudly when it sees a snake that is actually a piece of garden hose, before your conscious mind can become aware that it is a garden hose. And it may take quite a while for your heart rate and your anxiety to settle down, especially if you're really scared of snakes. Or you find yourself in the middle of an anxiety attack, and maybe that attack was triggered just by a thought. You might not even have been aware of the thought or the trigger that caused your anxiety attack, but you only know that an anxiety attack is happening once it has already started. Your heart has already started pounding. Your breathing has already rapidly increased. Your hands are sweating and you're feeling super stressed. Before you even become aware of it, your body has already produced these responses. You might be unable to stop thinking about something absolutely awful, and no matter how hard you try, your brain just keeps replaying it over and over again, even though you really don't want it, and even though you try really hard to stop it, you just can't. So this is where BWRT comes in, to disrupt that mistake pattern and replace it with something that is much more helpful. BWRT uses your active imagination to get inside the gap between your brain deciding to do something and the information arriving in your conscious mind. And it exploits that gap to replace the unhelpful information with new information about how you would prefer to react or respond to that trigger. BWRT is fast, it is safe, it is reliable, and it can be used effectively in person or online. You can even do it over the phone. BWRT is so helpful for a multitude of the presentations that I see in my practice, for psych disorders and for trauma and unhelpful responses. It's not a magic bullet, but the wonderful thing about BWRT is that it works most of the time. And even if it doesn't really completely change the unhelpful pattern, it cannot possibly make it any worse. If you find this conversation about BWRT interesting, you might want to have a look at the video that I made about BWRT in my practice and how the process of BWRT actually works in a therapy situation. Thank you for watching. Please leave me a comment if you found this interesting or useful, and I hope to see you again in the next video.